every year, things get a little worse. The disease progresses, and it progresses slowly. But every year when you go see your doctor, you're a rung or two down the ladder again. So it's something that you've only got so many rungs on the ladder. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Welcome to Beyond the Weeds, the podcast where perseverance meets potential. I'm Josh Realm, public speaker, marathon runner, asthma advocate, and your host as we explore the intersection of health, fitness, and resilience. Whether you're managing asthma, chasing a new personal best, or simply looking for inspiration, Beyond the Weeds is here to show you that no challenge is too great to overcome. Together, we'll uncover stories, insights, and strategies to help you push beyond your limits. It's time to breathe deeply, move forward, and unlock your true potential, one step at a time.
Today, I'm joined by Glenn Kitchener, a passionate COPD patient advocate with the Lung Health Foundation. Glenn's journey with lung disease began after 40 years of smoking and multiple bouts of pneumonia. In 2009, he quit smoking for good, which was a huge personal victory. But just a year later, he was diagnosed with chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or COPD. At first, the diagnosis was overwhelming. By the time he arrived at West Park Healthcare Center's Respiratory Day Hospital in 2012, Glenn was struggling with everyday life. Breathing had become difficult, his energy was low, and his confidence in doing simple daily tasks had been shaken. Through West Park's comprehensive program, Glenn received education, tools, and support that changed everything. He learned strategies to manage his symptoms, gained a deeper understanding of his condition, and discovered that with the right knowledge and mindset, it was possible to live well even with a progressive lung disease. For listeners who may not be familiar with COPD, here's a quick overview before we dive in. COPD, or again, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, is an umbrella term for chronic lung diseases, most commonly emphysema and chronic bronchitis, that cause blocked airflow and breathing difficulties. In Canada, over 2 million people are living with COPD, and many don't know they have it until the disease is more advanced. The primary cause is long-term exposure to lung irritants, with smoking being the most significant risk factor, but air pollution, occupational dust, and secondhand smoke can also contribute. COPD symptoms often include persistent cough, shortness of breath, especially during activity, increased mucus production, and frequent lung infections. While COPD has no cure, early diagnosis and proper management can slow its progression and improve quality of life. Treatments often include medication, oxygen therapy, pulmonary rehabilitation, and lifestyle changes such as exercise and smoking cessation. A quick note before we continue, the information in this episode is for general purposes only and is not a substitute for medical advice. Always talk to your healthcare provider about any questions or concerns regarding your health. Episodes like this one are part of a series designed with patients in mind. Going forward, in addition to sharing personal stories, we'll include educational sidebars like this to provide practical evidence-based information that you can apply to your own life or share with loved ones. With that in mind, Glenn's story is not just about living with COPD, it's about regaining control, building resilience, and becoming a voice for others in the lung health community. With all that being said, Glenn, thank you so much for joining and welcome to Beyond the Weeds.
Oh, hello, Josh. Thank you for having me on your podcast.
Thank you so much for coming on. We've had a couple of chats before. I do believe we met at Better Breathing Week in 2025, earlier this year as well, but we were a little busy during that time, so we didn't really get a chance to really learn much about one another. So I'm glad we can do this now, and I can learn just a little bit more about you and about COPD, and you can share with our listeners what life has looked like since you were diagnosed. So I'd like to start with the diagnosis and early challenges. Can you take us back to the time before your diagnosis? What symptoms or events made you realize that something might be wrong?
I think with all smokers, you realize many, many years before you get a diagnosis of any disease that there is a problem. I mean, I smoked heavily for 41 years, and I would imagine the disease had started by my 20th year. And people that smoke, they say, oh, this isn't a problem. I'll get over it. I'm having a rough patch. But, once you're diagnosed with the disease and now there's no turning back, you realize that what a crazy thing smoking cigarettes was.
And you've shared that quitting smoking was a big milestone for you, but then came the COPD diagnosis afterwards. How did you process that news?
It wasn't a big shock. Like I said, I knew something was wrong over the years, and having having an exacerbation and the pneumonia really put things into perspective. So it wasn't like one big brick wall falling on me. It was something that I guess I'd realized long before, and I just waited to hear the words.
And in those early days, what were some of the hardest parts about living with COPD?
Well, I'd lived a rather normal life. I mean, I was a heavy smoker, but, I still went out and did things. So I guess my biggest challenge once I was sick was adjusting to the new life of not being a physical person, not going out and doing a lot of the things I enjoyed in the outdoors, for example. I studied photography, and I like to climb all over things and do landscape photography. And now that's something that's not really something I can do. So there was a lot of challenges. The meds were another one. The meds, it took about 3 or 4 years to actually find meds that were compatible with the other meds that I take. And that was a real rocky road. Some medications didn't treat me very well. But I'm happy to say that I guess now I've been on the same meds going on about 7 years, and everything seems to be under control.
Learning what you're capable of and no longer capable of, I guess, outdoors, for example, as you mentioned, you're very outdoorsy and enjoy doing stuff outside. Reminded me a lot of Scott Bailey. You and I know Scott Bailey both. He's a mutual connection. And we had him on for episode 2, where we discussed really kind of the same thing and what his life has looked like since diagnosis. And he did mention that, he was super outdoorsy, kayaking, canoeing, fishing, you name it. And then came the diagnosis. And of course, with it being progressive, it does slowly get worse. So he finds more and more limitations year after year, essentially.
Well, yeah, every year I can say last year was my worst year for health. So every year things get a little worse. The disease progresses, and it progresses slowly. But every year when you go see your doctor, you're a rung or two down the ladder again. So it's something that you've only got so many rungs on the ladder. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
I'd like to talk now about the West Park experience. As I did mention in the introduction, in 2012, you came to West Park Healthcare Center's Respiratory Day Hospital. What was the first visit like?
It was kind of terrible. I didn't know what to expect. I took a bus, and I walked in from about 1.5 kilometers to West Park. And by the time I got to the front door, I was out of breath, and I was feeling really out of place. I was in a new a new building I'd never been in. I walked in the doors, and I had asked 2 men to move. 2 men sitting in wheelchairs, both double leg amputees. And I thought, oh my, what is this? And then I look farther into the main area, and there's people walking with oxygen tanks, more people with amputations. And I thought, this is crazy. What am I doing here? But, after, 4, 5, 6 months, you realize that, boy, this is really the place. And these people, that are living with an amputation are also in the right place to receive their, prosthetics and the training that they need to go on with their life after an amputation. So, West Park was a strange experience at first, but you realize after a while that, it is a really, really good place. And a lot of the people there are ill, and, people have had accidents or, through diabetes lost a limb. It's kind of hard to deal with, I guess, if you're someone who's not sort of in tune with the medical world. So, yeah, it was a really difficult day on my first day at West Park.
I guess I can kind of relate to that feeling as well, going somewhere where maybe at first you feel like you don't belong. And that would be me attending the IWK, the Sick Kids in Halifax, Nova Scotia, when I was a kid. And I spent a lot of time there, months per year even. And each time I would go, they had a lounge called the Teen Lounge. And if you were well enough, you could go to the Teen Lounge and you could meet other kids that were well enough to be there as well. And I would meet people who had, terminal brain cancer, who had cystic fibrosis, people really that seemed far worse than I ever did. And it was the weirdest experience. And then as I would return again and again, unfortunately, I would learn that, some of these patients had passed, which was incredibly sad. You said that education was the most important thing you took away from the program. Can you share some examples of the many little things you learned that really made a big difference?
Well, like I said, on my first walk into West Park, I did it in a 20-minute stint, and I was breathless by the time I got to the door. And the number one thing, and it hit me like a brick wall, instead of walking 20 minutes, walk 10, have that recovery 2 or 3 minutes, and then continue your walk. And it's just, that slap on the head. It's like, wow, this is the answer. So something like taking a rest instead of trying to do everything all at once. Pursed lip breathing is another one. Once you're in a position to control your breath, do it with pursed lip breathing, which actually keeps the oxygen in your bloodstream. It forces the air to work in your lungs instead of just exhaling it out. It's a pile of little things. Just how to get through your day. Taking breaks when you're doing your daily chores. Sitting instead of standing to do your daily chores. There's a lot of things that you think are pretty simple answers, but it takes a while for them to come to you because you're not used to being in that situation.
And what role did exercise and pulmonary rehabilitation play in your improvement?
The more work that you do to try to expand your lungs and keep them expanded and breathing air, like walking is a great exercise. And that's something that's really important. You see people that don't take the exercise seriously and they get sick. I think it's easier for me to fight off something like a potential exacerbation because I'm probably right now the healthiest I can be. So I'm happy that I'm doing the exercise and the benefits are me. I'm able to go out and do my daily tasks. I can go out for a walk, and I think the people that don't take advantage of the program when they're not exercising, you don't end up in a good place. Let me put it that way.
I couldn't agree more. And I do have another educational sidebar here. So pulmonary rehabilitation is a structured program that combines supervised exercise education and emotional support for people with chronic lung conditions. It often includes endurance and strength training tailored to lung capacity. Breathing techniques like pursed lip breathing and diaphragmatic breathing can help as well. Education on lung disease management, medications, and nutrition, and energy conservation strategies for daily living. Research shows that pulmonary rehab can reduce symptoms, improve exercise tolerance, and even enhance quality of life. Now, Glenn, I'd like to move on to living well with a progressive disease. COPD is a progressive illness, but you've been able to improve your quality of life. What strategies or daily habits help you manage your symptoms today?
Container of gas to get through the day. And I have to portion out my energy so I don't use up my can of gas before the day is over. It's kind of hard to explain how I can, because of the dyspnea, only have maybe 2 or 3 times where I can get myself very winded, and then I don't come back. I need to lay down on the bed. I need to have a sleep. I'm completely exhausted, and there's nothing left in the well. There's nothing left in the gas tank. So this is something that's really hard to deal with initially. And I've had several instances where I've been home, walked in the door and just ran over and flopped on the bed and woke up 5 or 6 hours later because I let myself get too far. So this is something I do now. I guess it's not even a conscious thought in my daily life, where I'm going to go, how I'm going to get there. I'm losing my voice here. And all the little things. It's like I said, it goes back to the education where you just can't think like you're a normal, healthy person, because that doesn't apply in your life anymore. So it's just the little strategies. You get up, you put your pants on one leg at a time, and then figure out what you're going to do with the rest of your day.
Kind of reminds me of what Scott Bailey mentioned on episode 2. He said, you try breathing through a straw every single day and see how you feel after that.
Just after Better Breathing Week, I had pneumonia. And I'm very fortunate that because I've had pneumonia before, I know the symptoms, and I got to hospital early, so it didn't have a real adverse effect on me. So, yeah, getting to know your body, the symptoms, and all things like that are very important, and it's something that you gain through time and experience, sadly enough.
And how do you handle flare-ups or bad days?
Two different things. Bad days are something like the wildfire events we've had here in Toronto. The first one in June was an 11 plus on the Air Quality Health Index. I was caught by surprise. I had a NIOSC N95 mask. I taped up the doors to my apartment. I had all my exhaust fans going, and all of that did very little. The smoke really, really affected me. I had issues with my upper respiratory tract, and eventually I coughed up something which was, how did they term it? It was a mucus plug that had been sitting in there since I guess the smoke event. And since I've since bought a P100 respirator, which kind of looks like overkill, but it really works. At least I can sit in my apartment and draw a fresh breath of air. That was the bad day. So I have a lot of tools in the toolbox for bad days, but an exacerbation, that is something totally different. I wanted to speak about the COPD action plan, which is something I got in on very early in my diagnosis. And a lot of doctors weren't very happy about me having medication and self-medicating. But now it seems this is what they're really pushing for new COPD patients, is to learn about the disease and be able to have the medications on hand. Like, you can probably attest to this. You're feeling sick on a Friday. You can't get in to see the doctor till Monday. And if it was a difference between getting a medication on Friday or Monday, it's really difficult. So I take my medication at the first sign of an exacerbation. I still get very sick, but I'm still alive. It's a very tenuous situation when you're taking steroids and antibiotics.
You're able to nip it in the bud just a couple days sooner, which can be, it can really be that line between life and death. And I can attest to that for sure. I get prescribed prednisone when I don't need it, just so I have it there for when I do. And I really try not to use, medications like prednisone. I know it's not great for you, but as you mentioned, you know what it feels like when you're getting pneumonia. And so do I. These are things that we have to deal with, unfortunately, on quite a regular basis. So being able to self-medicate when needed until you can get into the hospital or go see your doctor, go to the clinic, what have you, I think is the right move. We hold a lot of education when it comes to this stuff, and we know our bodies very well.
I'm working on a project with St. Mike's on how to completely change the way healthcare is delivered to people with chronic diseases. So someone that presents in the hospital with COPD, upon release, would be involved in a program where they would answer questions on an email and develop an algorithm. So, before they see their doctor in 3 months, things can be nipped in the bud, like a little change in the medication, a little bit more, a little bit less, or it could show something serious enough that the doctor would call that patient in. But as it stands now, you have your 3 months. You're told at the hospital, oh, you've just had an exacerbation. Here's your puffers. Here's this, that. And you have an appointment, in 3 months. A lot of things can happen. So since COVID, a lot of things have changed with how medicine is delivered, especially in the with computers and videos, and let's say this algorithm, which will really help people and then have that continue on in their continued care. So the doctors can be made aware of how things are going. And if you need to be called in, you can be called in, as opposed to just keep going back to waiting for that appointment. It's for some people, it's very hard. And if you don't know what's going on, 3 months is a long time.
What advice do you have for someone newly diagnosed and feeling overwhelmed?
Don't go to Dr. Google. When you're living with a chronic disease, you need somebody that knows what they're talking about dealing with your case. I'm very fortunate. I have a very good primary care physician, and my specialists. I go to West Park to see a doctor there, and he's top in his field.
So I'd like to move on now, Glenn, to part 4, which is advocacy and raising awareness. You're now a COPD patient advocate for the Lung Health Foundation, which is where we met. What motivated you to step into that role?
Well, we have a mutual friend, Dr. Nonoyama. I was working with her at the Ontario Tech University in Oshawa, doing climactic testing on people with COPD. I went to Better Breathing Week 2024, and it's kind of a funny story. When I was there, a lady asked me in the lunch line, I had long hair and a beard, and she says, "Are you a doctor?" And I said, "No," and I got that look of relief. So I mentioned to Dr. Nonoyama. She said, "Oh, yeah, you're probably one of 5 people that's not a doctoral student or a doctor." So going to Better Breathing Week 2025 and presenting, it was a totally different environment. There was a lot more patients there advocating and doing presentations. And it was a totally different feel from one year to the next. And I guess it was such a success that we're going to be doing it again, Better Breathing Week 2026.
Absolutely. I got to say, it was my first Better Breathing Week that I attended, at least in person. I did do 2024 virtually as well, at least as part of a webinar, but I was there in person for 2025, and I felt that patient support, and to have that opportunity as well to get on stage and talk about our experiences in front of all these doctors and specialists and other healthcare providers. It was great. It certainly makes you feel empowered, and I'm so happy to know that they're going to be doing the same thing, really following through with the same approach in 2026. Next question, Glenn. How can patients and families get more involved in advocacy and support networks?
It's really funny. I've noticed my involvement in research and actually just being involved in general is not the norm. A lot of people really shy away from any kind of advocacy or volunteering. I think if you have a family member that is, let's say, has COPD, it opens up a different world for you. So maybe it will encourage you to find a role as an advocate. Some people, they only want a little part. Some people like me, all of a sudden, I have a big part, and I'm quite happy doing that. But people have to find what fits them and what makes them most comfortable. I'm an introvert, and I'm doing this to get over my shyness. And I really push myself to be the person that I am, that you see. So I know that other people, like I said, might not want to put that much effort into it. And there's lots of ways to find out where you can help. The Lung Health Foundation is one. The Loop, their program, the Loop, is very beneficial to people with COPD. Lots of things to look at and learn about your disease. Something like a West Park. Every region, I would imagine, has a local hospital or a hospital in the region that specializes in lung health. Look them up. Find respiratory daycare programs that would be online if you can't go to a place in person. So that's very important too, is finding that connection to get the help, to get good help actually. And something like the Lung Health Foundation does provide good help.
They're incredible. I've really started working with them only, I want to say about a year ago, but absolutely love it. And I believe their mission, their goals, and their values.
A funny little story. 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I did a study with Dr. Quash, and it was looking at about 30 different internet sites. 28 of them were just like cut and paste from the Mount Sinai site or whatever. There was nothing new. It was all something that had been regurgitated from another site. The only two that were of any value was a very comprehensive site in England, but to gain access, I had to put in my medication, which my medications aren't on the list for medications in England. So I got cut short there. And then the next one was the Lung Health Foundation, the Loop. So 28 were absolutely useless, and one was good if I was in England, and then the best one was the Lung Health Foundation, the Loop. So there's help out there, and you just have to, I guess it's really hard if you don't know what you're looking for to find something like the Loop, and then go through all these others that were just, it was just regurgitating something from major hospital websites.
That's a great thing to point out. And what's funny about that actually is Dr. Quach is going to be on an episode actually rather soon. I'm recording with her in about a week, maybe 2 weeks time. And that's exactly what we're going to discuss. I was fortunate to hear one of her presentations at the Lung Summit in May, where she spoke about app literacy, because I think it's incredibly important. I mean, where we're getting our information from as patients is incredibly important. And there's going to be a lot of sources out there. It's sifting through them to know which ones are actually reliable and which ones are not just, copy and paste, so to speak.
Yeah, a lot I found were absolutely no help at all. When you're just diagnosed, it's a very scary time, and you're looking for solid answers. And a lot of these sites were just fluff. So you waste 15, 20 minutes, you go on to the next one, waste another 15, 20 minutes. So I find too that in healthcare, they deal with your disease, but they don't deal with your after treatment. No doctor is going to tell you about assistive devices program. You need to know these things, then present this to your doctor. Then he sends you to the OT so you can get 75% off on your power chair, let's say. But nobody's really telling you that ADP is out there. It's people like me that tell other people at West Park, the new people coming to West Park, this is what you need to do. This is what you need to know. This is where you can go for the information. And if you need a new walker or a new power chair, this is how you go about getting it. Because people are walking around with those aluminum, whatever you call them. They're not even a walker. And I see that all the time with wheat. Here in Toronto, people using these aluminum, I can't even think of calling it a walker. It's something that you'd use in a hospital, and they're using it outdoors on the street, which is very, very unsafe.
Yeah.
And then people say, oh, I really wish I could have a really nice walker like yours. Well, you can, 75% paid by the government. And yeah, sometimes there's other agencies that'll pick up that other 25%. So, having access to to quality medical aids and care after your diagnosis is another thing that you really have to be involved in. Talk to other people. I find that I do speak to a lot of new patients about things like ADP and just the information that's out there, because there's a lot. It's overwhelming, and if you're trying to do it by yourself, it can be really daunting, and you can end up spending a day and not learning a thing.
So we spoke a lot about the Lung Health Foundation, so I'd like to add in another little educational sidebar here. In regards to their resources, so the Lung Health Foundation offers a range of free supports for people with COPD, among other respiratory issues, including virtual and in-person support groups, respiratory health helpline staffed by certified respiratory educators. The number there is 1-888-344-5864. I'll put that in the show notes as well. Educational guides on breathing techniques, medication use and lifestyle changes, and smoking cessation programs and resources. Visit lunghealth.ca for more information, support, and ways to connect with others. And those others may even be Glenn. So I'd like to move on now to personal reflections. Glenn, looking back on your journey, what are you most proud of?
I guess being here today, talking to you. I mentioned earlier that I was an introvert. I was a fat kid, I was a fat teenager, and a fat adult, and I was very shy. And I guess about 25 years ago, I said to myself, this wasn't getting me anywhere, and I decided to do what I'm doing, to get out there and speak to people. And I found that maybe I have a voice that seems like some people want to listen to. And if I can be of help to someone by talking about my journey or answering a question, I think that is something to be really proud of.
I love that. And you absolutely do have a great storytelling voice. And I think it's important that you're sharing your journey with others. And I believe, only starting this, 2 years ago, Glenn, this advocacy work, you've got a long ways to go. So keep it up.
Well, thank you. It is a new thing for me. I was sort of nudged over. I don't know if you know Jody Hamilton from the Lung Health Foundation.
Yes.
Mika sort of actually elbowed me over and says, oh, Jody, I'd like you to meet Glenn. And then, here I am doing Better Breathing Week 2025, talking to you. So that little nudge from Dr. Nonoyana has really done well for me.
Yeah, I believe Jody Hamilton has since left the Lung Health Foundation. I believe it's a recent thing over the past few months. I got an email not too long ago, and I hope if you're listening to this, Jody, we all appreciate you, and I hope you are up to something incredibly beneficial to others, as I'm sure you are. Next question here, Glenn. If you could go back and talk to yourself on the day of your diagnosis, what would you say?
I wish I was seeing a better specialist. I was not happy with the doctor that diagnosed me. I was not happy with him at all. I went back to my GP, who suggested I go to West Park, who made the appointment for me to go to West Park. When I mentioned it to this specialist, he just shrugged his shoulders. He didn't seem to be too interested. And it seemed every time there was a paper to be signed, it cost me $100 or $200, which I was really, I wasn't really happy about that because, for example, I was filling out forms for West Park for my disability. And I get a phone call, and he says, this is Roger Goldstein. So I don't know who Roger Goldstein is. It's Dr. Roger Goldstein. He's the man that runs the clinic at Westfield. And he said to me, I could have sent this off to someone, and, they could have phoned you at some point, got me the information, and 2 days later I'd have it. But I'm sitting here, your phone number was there, so I thought I would phone you. And to get that kind of service, I immediately thought, I'm seeing the wrong doctor. So I asked to become a patient at the health clinic at West Park. And best decision I ever made, being involved with these top lung physicians in their field.
So now I'd like to move on to guest final thoughts and plugs before we wrap up here. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners? Maybe some resources, a support group, or one final piece of advice for living well with COPD?
There's a lot I could say. Something like a West Park, you mentioned somewhere in your region, there's a hospital that specializes in lung health. Get in touch with them. Find a good family doctor, one that will listen to you and send you to the good specialists. The Lung Health Foundation, their website is so valuable for someone exploring when they're new to a disease. It's a very scary process, and it takes time for you to sort of settle in, and it can be very scary, especially when you're having your first and second, third exacerbation before you're on the action plan. You really have to know what an exacerbation feels like before you can medicate. So sadly, you have to experience 2 or 3 exacerbations to know about taking your medication. So this is all very important. And it all comes back to the little things in education, things that you pick up. And I wanted to mention something. I didn't get a chance in one of the earlier questions. Someone said to me early on at the day hospital, the devil lets me look so good as long as I feel so bad. And that is something that's stuck with me. I find, especially a lot of older women will tell me that I'm faking, I'm trying to, bilk somebody out of money. Because I don't look like I have a disability or a severe disability. You walk into a room and see me without a walker, you would never know. So people look at me differently when I'm out walking with a rollator. And it's just really difficult when people look at you and think you're faking. And it's different when you see someone, like I said, 2 men sitting at the front door of West Park, both double leg amputees. It's so obvious, there's no question. But for me, am I disabled? People look at me and say no. And that can be a really, really tough thing when dealing with the disease, is how some people react to you.
I think that's incredibly powerful, and it's so true, right? I remember growing up, going through school, elementary school, junior high, high school, even college, and I'd be sick a lot of the times. I wouldn't be at school. I'd be at the hospital, or I would be at home struggling to breathe. And people didn't understand. They thought I was faking it, and when I was in school, I wasn't doing well. I mean, I was a very sick kid, and nobody really understood it but myself and my family. So I guess it can be said to, don't judge a book by its cover.
You'd mentioned about breathing through a straw. That sort of simulates the effects to a very small degree. Dealing with a breathing issue, like right now, my lungs are heavy. I wasn't feeling well yesterday, and it's all these little things that when you start feeling your lung capacity is diminished. Yesterday, my oxygen saturation was down 2%, which doesn't sound much like much. I was down to 95% from 97, 98, and it was noticeable for me. And it's to lead your life when you're not breathing well, when you're having difficulty getting that breath that you need for your brain to function, for you to walk around. I mean, you understand that, but people don't realize that, I have less than 40% lung function. So when I'm struggling for breath, it affects a lot of things, especially my thinking. I get very much tunnel vision. And that's, like I was saying earlier, it's a position that you don't want to be in. You don't want to get yourself to a point where you're not at home and you're out of gas. There's nothing left in the tank.
So I'd like to lead in to the final question, Glenn, and it's a bit of a philosophical question as well. There are no right answers, there are no wrong answers. Answer it as quick as you'd like or take as long as you need. The question is, whether you have asthma or not, every breath we take is a gift, a reminder of our resilience, our drive to keep going, and our power to define our own limits. With a single breath, you have the potential to move mountains and change the world. So with that in mind, Glenn, if you had only one last breath, but with it, the power to influence the world, what would your message be?
It would have to be something to do with smoking cessation or eliminating tobacco, having the government subsidize you to grow soybeans instead of tobacco. This is such a huge problem. I mean, I feel it with every breath, and it's a real scourge. There's kids out there that I'm hearing in a meeting the other day that kids are turning to cigarettes because they're hearing vaping is bad for them. So the message has actually gotten out that vaping is bad, but instead of stopping that altogether, they're moving to cigarettes. So that is really troubling. I heard also that they're going to ban the sale of vapes to people of a certain age, but every year, every birthday, that age goes up 1 year for you. So you'll never actually be able to purchase. You'll never legally be able to purchase. So maybe that's a way to... But then also, I live in a building in downtown Toronto that has a pretty big illegal cigarette industry. Nobody's smoking the expensive brands. So there's another issue, is the contraband, the counterfeit cigarettes. It's a huge issue. It's something that I wish I could just snap my fingers and just have that tobacco issue completely taken care of, because it's something that happened when I was a kid. A lot of people smoked. Now it seems it's a lot less, but with kids switching from vaping to cigarettes, maybe that number will go up again, and that's not a good thing.
Glenn, thank you so much for sharing your story and for the work that you do as a COPD patient advocate. Your journey from a place of fear and uncertainty to one of knowledge and empowerment really is inspiring, and it will resonate deeply with anyone living with a chronic lung condition. To our listeners, if you found today's episode helpful, please subscribe, share it with someone who might benefit, and leave a review. For more information on COPD and resources like the Lung Health Foundation, see the show notes. Until next time, keep pushing forward, keep breathing deep, and never let anything hold you back.
Thank you for listening to Beyond the Wheeze. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe and share. Follow us on Instagram at Beyond the Wheeze, and or follow me at the Asthma Runner for more updates. Keep breathing strong, and remember, your potential has no limits. Until next time.